start. So my name is Peter. So I'll be taking you through this topic, through this unit. So it's over leadership and management. And the first topic is overview of management. So overview of management. And when you talk about overview of management, the very first thing that you need to know is to know the management functions. Management functions. And when you talk about the management functions, we have 5 management functions. Anytime you're doing management, you start with the planning. You start with planning. So you have to plan. And when it comes to planning, you need to first of all understand, before you come up with plans, you need to understand the environment you'll be operating in. So part of planning, for instance, we are going to do environmental analysis. Environmental analysis. So it's a topic that we shall cover. It's going to be one of the topics, environmental analysis. You need to understand the environment in which you are operating. So for instance, if you want to start a business, you need to understand, for instance, the political environment. You need to understand the political environment. You need to understand, for instance, is there political stability in the place that you want to do business? You need to understand the economic environment. Economic environment, what's the rate of inflation? What's the taxation rates? What is the currency value? Matters to do with the economic policies of the government, among others. You also need to understand the social environment. So the social environment, the culture, the behavior, the attitudes of the people, the religion. Are you getting? Then technology, the technological know-how, the technology, their level of understanding in terms of ICT. Then the ecological. Ecological refers to the natural environment policies. For instance, issues to do with garbage management systems, issues to do with e-waste, for instance, in Kenya, issues to do with the polythene bags. Are you getting? So it's something that will also affect your business. And then the legal environment, that is the laws in place. So when we talk about the environmental analysis, we are going to look at the models of environmental analysis. One of them, the one that I have just talked about, is PESTEL. We are going to discuss SWOT analysis. We are going to discuss SWOT model, that is strength, opportunities, aspirations, and results, strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So that's part of planning. Under planning, you also need to know we have various levels of planning. We plan at the top level, and when you plan at the top level, we call them strategic plans. Are you together? So this is the top level. When we plan at the middle level, that is by the HODs, the people after the top level, we have the middle level, we call them tactical plans. So this is the middle level. And when we plan at the lower level, we call them operational plans. So this is the lower level. So sometimes the examiner may tell you, distinguish, give out 6 differences between strategic plans and operational plans. Are we together? So these are some of the issues that you need to know, as much as we are going to be discussing them a lot. When it comes to strategic plans, it happens at the top level, whereas the operational plans happens at the lower level. Then strategic plans are long-term in nature. Are we together? For instance, even when you talk about the government will come up with plans even for Vision 2030. Are we together? So that's there. They are long-term in nature. Whereas these ones are middle term in nature, the operational plans are short term in nature. Another difference is that with the strategic plans, they focus on the external environment. Are we together? You need to know what is your competitor doing. What are the government policies? You need to do a lot of PESTEL when you are doing the strategic plans. However, when you are coming to the operational plans, you are focusing on what the middle level managers had told you to achieve. So meaning these ones are internal in nature. Strategic plans are complex. They are complex in nature. These ones are not that complex, they are simple. Then you'll also find that the strategic plans, they involve allocation of major resources of the farm. They involve allocation of major resources of the farm. Whereas operational plans, they focus on the tactical plans. The tactical plans then will focus on the strategic plans. So those are some of the issues that we shall be discussing, but you need to get that idea as early as now. So that is now planning. Planning, so when it comes to the classification of plans, we can classify them based on, when we classify them under strategic, tactical plans, and operational plans, we are classifying them under the level of management in which planning is taking place. We can also classify them under time frame. Under the time frame, we can talk about long-term plans. We can talk about middle-term plans. We can also talk about short-term plans. That's under the time frame. And definitely long-term plans are usually strategic plans. These are tactical, whereas operational are also short-term. Then we can also classify them under the use. There are those plans that we use on a daily basis. And there are those plans that, for instance, procedures of the farm, those are also plans. We use them on a daily basis. And then there are those plans that we use on a single basis. So we can talk about single-use plans and standing plans. But majorly the examiner will ask you, most of the questions you'll find, he will ask, give out 6 or 8 characteristics of strategic plans. Are you together? Give out characteristics of strategic plans, or he may tell you to distinguish between strategic plans and operational plans. Are we together? Yes. Then this is one of the functions of management and planning. As we are going to discuss, because we are going to discuss planning as a topic, as a full topic, it's the primary function of management. You can't move to any other management function without planning. So it's the primary function of management. After planning, we then move to organizing. So we have come up with a strategic plan. Here we have come up with a strategic plan. We've done environmental. So after all these activities of environmental analysis, the final product is that we come up with a strategic plan. Now we want to implement it. For instance, governments will come up with manifestos. They will come up with, the county governments will come up with the CIDP, that's County Integrated Development Plan. Even organizations will come up with strategic plans. Now we do organizing. Organizing is where we are going to create departments. So one of the elements of organizing is what? Departmentation. We are going to create departments in which we are going to achieve those plans. We are also going to allocation of duties. So there is responsibility. Who is responsible? Responsibility and authority. Responsibility and authority, we are going also to do a lot of job design. So we are going also to discuss organizing as a subtopic. Are we together? Now, after organizing, what do? We put people in those departments. We've come up with them. We've been able to create departments. We have the human resource department. We have the finance department. We've just created departments, but they do not have people in them. So we do staffing. So staffing is the third element is the third management function. So we put people there. So some of the elements of staffing includes, for instance, we talk about recruitment and selection. There is training and development. There are things to do with deployment. There are things to do with human resource welfare, that is employees' welfare. Issues to do with disciplinary action. Those are some of the functions of staffing. We are going to discuss it also. Then after staffing, then we do directing. And directing is also called leading. And this is the basis of our leadership. So this is what we're going to be focusing at the leadership. So leading is where you provide, you communicate. You need to communicate. Communication is very important. You need to supervise, supervision. You need to motivate, motivation, provide instructions. Those are some of the functions or activities or elements of directing. And then after directing, then there is controlling. And controlling, this question is very common, the process of controlling. The process of controlling. And when it comes to controlling, it simply means measuring performance against. Controlling is measuring performance, against set standards, So note that we set standards during the planning. For instance, there's what we want to achieve. Are you together? So now we want to see whether we were able to achieve those standards. And it involves the following process. So the process of controlling one is setting performance standards or targets. Set performance standards or targets. For instance, in the organization, we may set that we want to achieve this amount of profit or this amount of revenue. Those are targets. So then once we set the performance standards, targets, and even communicate them, setting and even communicating them, then measure actual performance. Then after measuring the actual performance, you compare actual performance. You compare actual performance with the set standards, And then after comparing actual performance with the set standards, then you examine the reasons for deviation. What could be the possible reasons for deviation? Why could there be deviation? One, so that we see whether you are together. What could be the possible reasons for deviation? The deviation let's make an assumption that the deviation is a negative deviation, where maybe we had set performance standards that we are going to achieve 11 million as our profit, but we achieved 3 million. What could be the possible reasons for deviation? Those are some of the questions that will come in the case study. So examine the reasons for the deviation in organization XYZ. Then you are given 12 marks. What could be the possible reasons? One? So unrealistic targets, very true. Unrealistic targets. Low motivation. Poor training or lack of skills. Is that okay? Sindio? People do not have the skills or lack of manpower. Are you together? So why is it that people do not achieve the targets given to them in organizations? Are we okay? Yes. So those are some of the reasons. And then you provide appropriate feedback. Why I've used the word appropriate? Some books use the word corrective. Sometimes it can be rewards. It's not necessarily that people do not achieve their targets. They can also surpass their targets. So you can either use rewards or corrective feedback. Rewards or corrective feedback. So the meaning that the management functions are, one, we have planning, organizing, staffing, directing, and controlling. Are you together? And you need to know the terms. I've used this as management functions. because we are going also to use the word management roles. So when you talk about management functions, it's very different from management roles. Are you together? Yes. So those are the management functions. Then we move on to look at features or characteristics of management. Features or characteristics of management. When we talk about management, what are its features? One, the management is universal. And then we can brainstorm and ask ourselves, what does it mean that it is universal? Yes? It is practiced all over. Are you together? It is practiced all over. Everywhere, management is required. So practiced all over. That's what it means. And I always insist, in leadership, always master the key terms. Are you together? Yes. Don't write so many stories. For instance, there are those words that I've been using when discussing this. Because if the elements of, for instance, the examiner tests on the elements of organizing, he's looking for the word departmentation, responsibility and authority, job design. Those are the words that the examiner is looking for. Are you together? So the key terms, is that okay? The key terms to mark your paper. Now, management is practiced all over. Everywhere, management is required. Then, applied in all levels of the organization. Applied in all levels of the organization. What are the levels of the organization? Which levels of the organization do we have? We have which levels of the organization? Top level, middle, and the lower level. So when you say that it's applied in all levels of the organization, is that we have the top level management, we have the middle level, and we have the lower level. Number 3 of management is that it is purposeful. Which keyword? What do we mean by it's purposeful? Intended to achieve certain goals. Are you together? So that it means it's goal-oriented. It means it's goal-oriented. And number 4 is that it's concerned with the productivity. Concerned with the productivity. And what it means that it is concerned with productivity, seeks to achieve concrete results. She seeks to achieve concrete results. For instance, profits. Are you together? It's concerned with productivity. Then it's integrative. And what it means by integrative is that it's a coordinating function. It's a coordinating function. It coordinates the efforts done by each and every member of the organization to ensure that it gives results. Then it's a social process. What does it mean by social process? Done by people. Done by people, for the people, for the people. There's a lot of interaction. Social process means that there is human relations. Human or interpersonal relations. Human or interpersonal relations. And number 7 is that it's concerned with allocation, concerned with allocation of resources. Concerned with allocation of resources. Note that we say that one of the characteristics of strategic planning is that it involves allocation of major resources of the farm. Then it is multidisciplinary. What does it mean by multidisciplinary? Yes? It's it cuts across various disciplines. Are you together? So cuts across various disciplines, like it borrows from various disciplines like sociology, anthropology, economics, It borrows from various disciplines. It borrows from various subject areas. It borrows from various disciplines or various subject areas. Then it is a continuous process. Continuous process. It is a continuous process. It is also complex. It's complex. It is complex. That is, it involves various activities. Involves various activities. That's what it means. It's a complex. And then composite. Composite means it involves series of activities that must be performed in a proper sequence. So must be performed in a proper sequence. So remember we talked about the management functions. There was a sequence. You cannot start with staffing. You must start with planning, then move to organizing, then to staffing, then to directing, and finally to controlling. So those are the characteristics of management. Then let's also understand yes. Handout or the same, yes. After this, you okay with that? I'll give a handout of the same, eh? So then we look at the management as a science. Management as a science, as an art. Management as a science, as an art, and as a profession. So you are told to justify management as a science. Is it a science? It's an art and it's also a profession. Why is it a science? You need to examine the characteristics of science. Are you together? For you now to see management as a science. And one of the characteristics of science, every science has universally accepted principles. Universally accepted principles. The same thing with the management. Across, that's why we also argued that it is universal. Across the world, it is agreed, it is universally agreed that these are the management functions and they must follow that sequence. Are you together? There are certain management principles that you cannot debate about because they are universally accepted. Are you together? So it has universally accepted principles. Number two, that management principles have been developed through experimentation and observation. Management principles have been developed through experimentation and observation. For instance, there was the Elton Mayo. We are going to study in topic 2. We are going to study somebody called Elton Mayo. In topic 2, that is the evolution or development of management thought. And in that experimentation, he did certain experiments. He put a group of women in well-lit room, and another in dim-lit room, and he was examining on how the physical working conditions can affect the productivity of the employees. And in that experiment, he found that in both groups, the performance increased. Are you together? So I know that you would think that the women in dim-lit room, the performance would go down. Sindio? So that's the thinking, and that's what is the hypothesis. But then he found, even him, he had hypothesized that in dim-lit rooms, the performance would go down. However, he found out that in both groups, the performance increased. And he called it Hawthorne. He called it what? Hawthorne. And Hawthorne means, what does Hawthorne mean? Hawthorne effect. It means the way people change behavior because they are aware they are being observed. People change their behavior because they are aware they are being observed. So in this case, one of the things that Elton Mayo observed, or the conclusion he made, is that supervision is very important for employees to work. So because the women in dim-lit room, They also increase their performance because they are aware they are being observed. Are we together? Yes. We are going to study it under the Human Relations School of Thought. So meaning, as per, when you look at Elton Mayo, among other scholars, they have done experiments for them to be able to make these conclusions about management. They did not just wake up and wrote books. They made those conclusions through experimentation and observation. The third characteristic is the test of validity and predictability. Test of validity and predictability. This is what or hypothesis testing. So what it means is that now, what a hypothesis is like an assumption, is a research assumption. When you're doing a research, for instance, we've given an example of Elton Mayo, where he would make a conclusion that even in the women who are put in dim lit room, their performance would go down because the working conditions was not good. You see, that is the assumption somebody would make. Is that okay? What do you do after making that assumption? You proceed to test the validity of that assumption. Are you together? You may find that your assumption is correct. That's what we call a positive hypothesis. Or you may find that your assumption is wrong. Are you together? So can you see, did Elton Mayo test the validity of his hypothesis, of his assumptions? So in management, we do not just make conclusions, but we also test the validity of our assumptions. Are we together? By doing experiments. Are you together? Yes. So you may think that if I give these employees a higher salary, their performance would go up. Then you continue to give them a higher salary, and you might find that the performance goes down. Are you together? Yes. So there is that aspect in management. Then body of knowledge. Body of knowledge. What does it? Any science has a body of knowledge. For instance, when you look at chemistry, when you hear somebody talking about carbon dioxide, carbon 4 oxide, carbon 2 oxide, definitely you'll conclude that is chemistry. If somebody talks about kidney and all that and heart, you then conclude that's biology. Then if somebody starts talking about Elton Mayo, starts talking about other scholars like Frederick W. Taylor and Henry Mintzberg, then you can conclude that is management. So management has its own body of knowledge. Are you together? It has its own body of knowledge. Then another thing is that it has, so body of knowledge means it has specialized body of knowledge. Specialized body of knowledge. Then number 5 is that management, there are management theories. Indeed, that's what is going to form management theory. So science is more theoretical than practical. Do you agree with that? That's art is the one that is practical. This one is practical, this one is theoretical. And that's why science is usually informed by theories. Then another characteristic is there is cause and effect relationship. Cause and effect relationship. So that's what makes it a science. Then let's look at what makes management an art. So you need to put this on your fingertips. That's part of learning. You need to put them in your fingertips. Then once you have them in your fingertips, then you are able to give an explanation to each of it. Universally accepted principles, body of knowledge, experimentation and observation, then test of validity and predictability, cause and effect relationship, among others. So what makes it an art? What makes it an art? One, requires practical results. Requires practical results. For instance, profits requires practical results. Management requires practical results, and that makes it an art. Then secondly, is that management has practical knowledge. Has practical knowledge. It's not only the theoretical knowledge of learning in class. As a manager, you need to have practical skills. You need to have the practical knowledge. You need to have that practical exposure of management. Then another thing that makes it an art is the personal skills are required. Somebody may have all the theoretical knowledge of management with him, but then when you put him in the management position, he does not perform. Right together? Because there is the personal skills that are necessary. For instance, human relation skills, the way you relate with people, the way you resolve conflicts, that one requires personal skills, not necessarily the theoretical knowledge that you acquire in class. You also need the personal skills. Then it is goal-oriented. Remember, we said one of the characteristics of management is that it is purposeful. It is goal-oriented. Then requires creativity. Art is creativity. Art is all about creativity. And finally, is that requires practice. Requires practice. Requires practice, that is experience. Requires practice, that is experience. So that's what makes it an art. That's what makes it an art. Then we also look at it as a profession. For instance, is accounting a profession? Is accounting a profession? Accounting is a profession because, why is it a profession? Is there a professional body for accountants? Sindio? So that makes it a profession. Are there code of ethics for accountants? So there are code of ethics for accountants. That also makes it, for then, any profession, for instance, accounting is a different profession from human resource because accounting has also its own body of knowledge from human resource. So accounting also has its own body of knowledge. So even management as a profession, it has its own body of knowledge. So those are some of the things that make it a profession. That is, yes. And then no. Yes. That's multidisciplinary. Oh. Yeah. Or business, yeah, true. Yeah, true, very true. Very true. You get that argument? That when you talk about management, because there is, but it's required across. It's, yeah. You need management skills. Okay. Yeah. But it has not been able to stand on itself. Thank you for that. So one is code of ethics. 2 is specialized body of knowledge. 3 is professional body. 4 is social obligation. Social obligation to give. And finally is formal education and training. You need to learn management skills for you to become a good manager. Is that okay? Yes. So that's what makes it a profession. That's what makes it a profession. So those are some of the arguments advanced on management as a science, as an art, and as a profession. So can I wrap the first, Nini, so I will continue? Sindio? Okay. So let me read the comments coming from the online students. So there is no sound, really. So this part is okay. So we are getting, is that okay? So we move on to look at the roles of management. We are done with the functions. We look at roles of management. When we talk about the roles of management, we always focus on one scholar. Even when the examiner tests on roles of management, you'll find that he always examines roles of management as advanced by Henry Mintzberg. As advanced by Henry Mintzberg. And don't confuse Henry Mintzberg with Henry Fayol. We shall mention Henry Fayol. Are we together? Henry Fayol is the principles of management. Roles of management by who? Henry Mintzberg. So to him, he put three major categories of management, and the three major classifications he talked about interpersonal. Managers play interpersonal roles, informational, and decisional roles. Decisional. At the interpersonal, a manager is a liaison. A manager is a liaison. What does it mean by liaison? Liaison is the manager who is liaising, or he's the one who is externally linking the organization. He creates external links with the organization. He's the one to liaise with the government to ensure that the organization is compliant. He's the one to liaise with the suppliers to know the supply of goods and services to the organization. He's the one to manage all the stakeholders of the organization. So that's what it means by liaison. The second is interpersonal, is that a manager is a figurehead. A manager is a figurehead. And what it means by figurehead is that he represents the organization in major events. For instance, the manager is the one to attend the opening events, to the opening ceremony of an organization. So if the organization has a major event, he's the representative. He's the key representative of the organization in major events of the firm. And then a manager is a leader. And what it means by a leader is that he inspires. He inspires. So he inspires. Indeed, that's what it's the definition. To inspire the team, to motivate the team towards achievement of results. He acts as the role model. People look up to him for motivation. So those are the management roles under the interpersonal. Then under informational, the manager monitors, is a monitor. He keeps his ears out to get information. He looks for information outside so that he can be able to utilize that information. He's looking for information from he wants to know what is the competitor doing. He wants to know what is the government saying. What is the new government talking about the industry they are operating in? What are the suppliers? Are you getting? He looks for information. Then he's also a disseminator. And disseminator, he communicates that information to the right people in the organization. For instance, when he hears that there are issues to do with their legal issues, there are issues to do with compliance, the parliament has enacted certain laws that are going to affect the business, he will communicate that information to who? To the legal department for action. And then he's also a spokesperson. He speaks. He's the one to speak on behalf of the firm. Whenever he speaks, it is the firm speaking. Are we together? And therefore, his words are authority. His words are authority because they carry a lot of authority in regard to the decisions or the position of the firm. Then, he's also plays a decisional role, and decisional is that he's an entrepreneur. And as an entrepreneur, he innovates. The word is innovating. He comes up with ideas that will help the firm propel or grow So he innovates on behalf of the firm. He's also a negotiator. He's also a negotiator. And as a negotiator, he negotiates or bargains on behalf of the firm. He's the one to negotiate with the suppliers. He's the one to negotiate with the banks for loans, among others. So he bargains on behalf of the firm. And then he's also a disturbance handler. And as a disturbance handler, he's the one who resolves issues. He resolves conflicts. He resolves disputes. And finally, he's also a resource allocator. To allocate resources, the major resources of the firm. So the examiner may test, discuss the roles of management as advised by Henry Mintzberg. You discuss all the three. There's a time. So there's a question that he can test. There's a question he tests, discuss the decisional roles of management as advanced by Henry Mintzberg. Then the examiner expects you to only discuss what? Are you together? Yes. If he tests informational or he may test interpretation. For instance, the question that was there sometimes back was decisional, 8 marks. Are you together? So you discuss only entrepreneur, negotiator, disturbance handler, and resource allocator. Are you together? Yes. And you may note the key terms. For you, the key terms is entrepreneur, negotiator, disturbance handler, and resource allocator. So we are done with the roles of management. We move on to look at levels of management. Levels of management. Levels of management. And we noted that we have 3 levels of management: top level, middle level, and the lower level. Usually, you need to know all the functions, but because you are in section, this is now CPA, the examiner is more interested in the top to know whether you know. When you are put in the board, for instance, the board of directors, that's the top level. Is that clear? So the top level management is also called administrative level. It's also called administrative level. Between management and administration, which is higher than the other? Between management and administration, which is higher than the other? Yes? It's management. Yeah, this is a question that will always confuse everybody. It's administration. Yes. Eh? No, what happens is that the administrative, indeed, administration happens at the top level. Management happens at the middle and the lower level. Okay? Yes. So administration is higher than what? Than management. Are you together? So when we shall even be distinguishing between the two, we shall even be saying that administration, their strategic planning happens at the administration. Are you together? Yes. Now, what do these people do? Functions. So made up of, we need to know that it's made up of board of directors, the CEO, and who else? And other top executives. And other top executives. Functions of the top level management. Or what roles do they play? Top level. One of them is to ensure strategic planning. One of the things that they do is strategic planning. Or in other ones, you can put it differently, coming up with the mission, vision, and major goals of the organization. They are the ones who generate the mission, the vision, and the major goals of the organization, and they communicate it to the other members of the organization so that they can know what they are supposed to achieve. Are you together? The other function they do is major resource allocation. Major resource allocation. That's what they do. Are you together? Yes. they allocate the major resources of the farm, budgeting. That involves budgeting, among other things. And allocating those budgets to the farm. Then external linkage, or linkage with the external environment. Linkage with external environment, or external stakeholders, the key stakeholders of the farm. The key stakeholders of the farm, the government, they are the ones to ensure that they are in good terms, though that's a different one. Compliance, they are the ones to ensure that suppliers, we have the right suppliers. Then another function that they do is for instance, the board of directors is the one to appoint the CEO. Is that true? And the board of directors is also the one to appoint the top executives. So meaning we can also say appointment of top executives. Appointment of top executives, including the CEO. Including the CEO. Then the CEO, they also appoint, the CEO will also appoint the middle level managers. Right together. The CEO is the one to appoint the middle level managers. Another function they do is risk management. Risk management. So risk management, managing the risks of the farm. And finally, ensuring compliance with the government rules and regulation. Ensuring compliance with the government rules. So those are the ones. You can see we are using some terms, isn't it? Yes. Compliance, risk management, resource allocation, appointment of the top executives. Yes, those are some of the ones that I would expect you to use. So I talked about strategic planning, major resource allocation, appointment of top executives, risk management, compliance, and external relations. So that's the top level. Then we look at the middle level. Middle level. Management. And this one is made up of who? It's made up of HODs. That's the heads of department. I also feel like it's also made up of supervisors. Made up of HODs, supervisors. And then I noted that this is also called what? Administrative level. Are you together? Now this one is also called executory level. It's also called executory. These ones do not, they implement, they are implementers. They're implementers of what is generated at the top level. And what they do is that they link between, so functions or roles, functions of the middle level management. One is to link the top level with the lower level, link the top level with the lower level, link the top level with the lower level, link the top level with the lower level. Then another thing is recruitment of the lower level managers, recruitment of the lower level managers, recruitment of the lower level managers, supervision of lower level managers, then they also do planning. Which kind of planning? Did I talk about the types of plans? Which kind of planning do they come up with? Yes? in terms of we said that we can classify plans in regard to, what did we say? That we can plan based on the level of level in which it's taking place. The kind of plans coming at the middle level. Which plans are those ones? You've forgotten. Tactical planning. What are tactical plans? Planning geared, plans that are established, to achieve what? Plans that are established to achieve strategic plans. Are you together? Now we have the strategic plan. For instance, the top level management has told us we want 5 million profit. Then sisi tujue wewe utaleta target ya 100,000, 50,000, wewe utaanza kwenda kwa zile farms kutafuta pesa. Are you together? Si ndio? So those are the tactical plans ili tusaidie kuachieve ile plan kubwa tulisetua pale. Ni sawa? Wewe huja kuja kazi mapema nini? Those tactical plans. Are you getting? Yes. So we come up plans that are established to achieve strategic plans. I can ask a simple question. Outline 6 characteristics of tactical plans. 1, they happen at the middle level management. 2, they are medium term in nature. Is that true? 3, less complex compared to what? To strategic plans. 4, they are internal in nature. Very true. Internal. 5, let's come up with the plans. Let me read from the online. Tactical plans. What are the characteristics of tactical plans as opposed to the strategic plans? So we shall study them. Are you getting? Yeah, but then at least you have an idea. Even when you go to read, you can understand. Is that clear? Yes. Yes. So then, communicate grievances, communicate policies to the lower level managers. So that's all about the middle level management. That's about the middle level management. And then we look at the lower level managers, lower level management. These managers are also called first line managers. And they constantly interact with the employees. They constantly interact with the workers. They're the one in close contact with the workers. And one of the things that they do is to supervise workers, then resolve grievances of the workers, 3 is to training of workers. 4 is that provide resources to workers, to the workers, equipment, among others, motivating workers. So those are the functions of the lower level managers. Are we together so far? Yes? So we now look at management skills. Management skills that you need are so many, but there are those ones that have been advanced by a scholar called Robert Katz. So we are first of all going to talk about management skills that are advanced by Robert Katz. There are 3. But we are going to add more too. And if the examiner was given to tell you to discuss 10, then you can think more. For instance, integrity is also a management skill. But we are going to discuss the first 3 by Robert Katz. So Robert Katz, advanced 3 management skills, which are one, conceptual, interpersonal, also called human relations skills, and technical. But we always add diagnostic, and communication. All the skills that we talk about, they revolve around those 5. And now I'll discuss each. When you talk about conceptual means ability to think widely and generate ideas, to conceptualize ideas, to the skills that are required. Indeed, you can define, if somebody was to tell you to define conceptual skills, you can define them as skills required for strategic planning. Skills required for strategic planning. And therefore, these skills are required most at which level of management? Where are they required most? At the top level. And that's what we should discuss to the examiner. Let him know that you know. These are skills required for strategic planning and therefore are required most at the top level. Then interpersonal / human relations are skills required in order to enable the manager relate well with other people. These are social skills. The manager must be able to relate well with other people. And therefore, they are required most where? Yes? At both the middle and the lower. Because even the lower level, I can see the manager interacting with the workers. Is that clear? And he's the one also who is resolving issues. So they are required most at the middle level as well as the lower level. Then technical skills. These are skills required to perform specialized tasks. Skills required to perform specialized tasks. For instance, you cannot be an account manager if you don't know how to do accounts. Is that clear? You must have specialized knowledge in regard to accounting. You must have specialized knowledge in regard to accounting. And where do you require these skills most? Which level of management? Lower level, do you agree? Middle and lower. Where most? At the lower level. Senor? Yeah, lower level, let me justify, because the one who is, for instance, he's the one who is preparing the books of account. The workers will prepare the books of account. Then if you don't know how to prepare books of account, will you be able to supervise them? No. Indeed, technical skills are not required most. They are also required at the top level, but not at the lower level. And that's why you can even see the government, they can appoint anybody at the board of directors. You'll find somebody, you'll find maybe, I'm sorry, politicians at the top level chairing the boards of directors. But now, at the, for instance, you cannot bring anyone in the finance department to be a supervisor. He must be somebody who is an accountant. Are you together? Who has those skills. Are you together? Yes. Who has the technical, you must have the technical skills to be able to act as a supervisor to the workers. So those are the management skills. Then diagnostic is able to diagnose, to find problems, to find issues, and to find and resolve problems. This is the way we talk about diagnosis, to find and resolve issues and problems. As a manager, you need that skills. Then communication is the ability to communicate information. More other skills like integrity. You also need to have emotional intelligence. And this is a concept that I've seen. It's usually tested. You know what is emotional intelligence? Emotional intelligence is the ability to understand and manage your own emotions as well as the emotions of others. Are we together? Ability to understand and manage your own emotions as well as the emotions of others. That is where you understand your emotions and you manage your own emotions. You understand the emotions of others and manage emotions of others. You should understand your own emotions. For instance, maybe you get angry when triggered by certain factors. And therefore, the best thing to do is to do a BCD. That means that you know yourself and you can manage yourself. You can also manage your employees. You can manage your boss emotions. That your boss or even your employees, your workers, become angry on the following things. And therefore, the best way is to do a BCD. So it means emotional intelligence. It has the following components. One is self-awareness. That you know yourself, and self-management. And you can manage yourself. You know yourself and you can manage yourself. Then social awareness is the ability to manage, to know others and manage others. That is relationship management. A manager should also be a person of integrity, confidence. However, if the examiner happens to tell you to discuss 4, then you start with these ones. Are together? Yes, the first 5. However, if the examiner might tell you to discuss more, are you together? Then you can give more, like emotional intelligence, integrity, and confidence. You'll find that most these ones, there is a correlation with interpersonal. There's a lot of correlation between whatever we are adding with interpersonal. So those are the management skills. Those are the management skills. Then we look at the difference between administration and management as a conclusion of our class. Administration and management. We say that administration is superior to management. Do you say that? Yes. So administration versus management. And one of the difference between administration, we can look at one, we are going to discuss the aspect of comparison or a basis. Then we look at the administration and we look at management. The basic thing that you need to understand before we move on is to know that this one is superior to this. This one is happening at the top level. This is happening at the middle and the lower level. Now, with one of the basis of distinguishing the two is to definition. What does administration mean? Administration is formulation of broad policies and plans of the organization. Formulation of broad policies and plans of the firm. That is, you can, if you put it in other words, you can talk about formulating strategic plans of the firm. Formulating strategic plans of the firm. Then this one is act of getting things done. And that's why we are going to say this one is administrative, this one is executory. Are we together? Yes. Now, nature, decision making. It's a decision making function. It's an executory function. Scope. Scope. Major decisions of the farm. Major decisions of the farm. Major decisions of the farm. And then decisions of the subunits of the farm. Decisions of the subunit of the farm. Then focus, policy formulation, policy implementation. Then status. Who are here? Administration is the owners. These ones are employees. The owners are usually the top level. Then we can even talk about level. Top level, middle and lower level. Then factors affecting decisions. And factors affecting decisions, external factors, internal factors. Then skills. Skills, conceptual and human. Conceptual and human. Human and technical. Yeah, so those are the differences. There's something we've been mentioning. I also want to distinguish between strategic plans and tactical plans so that if the examiner was to test the characteristics of strategic plans, you're able to give, the characteristics of tactical plans you can be able to give, and the difference, whether he tests the difference or characteristics, you can be able to give. So let me give out those. So you can now be able to distinguish between administration and management. And I said, as you read, you need to know that administration is superior than what? Management is superior to management. So I'm going to talk about difference between strategic plans, the difference between strategic plans and strategic planning. Strategic planning versus tactical planning. And one of the different strategic planning tactical planning. One is that takes place, happens at the top level. Middle level. Then plans of the entire organization. Plans of the entire organization. Or in strategy, we used to say concerned with organization as a whole. Concerned with organization as a whole. However, the tactical plans, you'll find specific department. Planning of specific departments. Then another difference is that they are long-term, medium-term, then complex and broad, less complex, external in nature, internal, those are some of the differences between strategic plans and tactical plans. So that brings us to the end of the first topic, overview of management. So I don't know why Peter Baer is giving out his contact. That's online. Peter Baer is asking, please, sir, kindly share. Okay, I share with you the notes. I promise to. Notes. Okay, so everybody needs the notes, eh? So I'm going to share you see my notes are very summarized. Maybe you need for extensive reading. So I'm going to share two parts of notes, the way I've generated these notes vis-a-vis the summarized notes. That's okay. So when you get notes that are 50 pages or 20 pages or 30 pages for the first topic, then that is detailed notes vis-a-vis the ones that are highly summarized. So that's okay. Yes. That's okay with you. Yeah. So there are those ones who like further reading so that you understand. Yeah? Like the source doc, it's the reference book given by Kasnev, yeah, to make reference. For references, there's like a concept you may not have understood, so you go back and try to understand better. So I think, any question? So I'll share the notes on WhatsApp, Peter. Thank you so much. So you've understood, Any question? So now you know when I talk about Robert Katz, what did he talk about? Management? Management skills. I've had somebody talk about management roles. Who came up with the management roles? Henry Mintzberg, Yes. So how many scholars have we mentioned in this class today? We've only mentioned Robert Katz and Henry Mintzberg, Henry Mintzberg and Robert Katz. So with Elton Ma, we are going to mention him in the next class. So we are going to mention Elton Ma in the next. So indeed, the next class will be about scholars. I think because it will be a lot of scholars, then we can divide it into two classes. On Sunday, we have a class on Sunday and another one on Friday. Sawa, thank you. Are you okay with Sunday? Sunday, if you are not coming, then you can join online. But it's good that you come because there will be advanced FR. There will also be advanced FR. Yes, thank you. This looks different. Yeah, it's okay. This looks so different.